You're listening to Creative Campfire, where creatives like you come to talk shop, share stories, and light the path for one another. Whether you're here to learn, grow, or just feel a little less alone, welcome to the fire. So excited to have this amazing editorial documentary. Food, you know me and food. Oh my God. Like we totally nerded out over food. Food photographer, person photographer, community builder, super duper artist, just loves everything about photography and everything that encompasses that world. I met this individual through another amazing human. Katie McCumber introduced me to PJ. And PJ is in my dad's hometown of Philadelphia. So why? I mean, I cannot love this guy anymore. He's from the
Go
land
Birds.
of the land of the Eagles, right? And I just hung out with the Philly fanatic and was like, yeah, Philadelphia.
That's
so
awesome.
welcome to the show, PJ Agbay.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you in front of me. We do video this, but you guys just don't get the video. Ha 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 ha. It's audio only. And so it's fun to connect with a photographer who loves what they do, loves everything about photography, just wants to shoot. Like just wants to create.
Create.
And I think that was the conversation actually we just had, like 2 weeks ago or so, about how you're like, oh man, I just wish I could just spend my time creating and find someone to help me with the business stuff or find someone to help with like the admin stuff. Because, the business is real, but at the same time, you've got all this energy to go out and make things, which I find so inspiring and hopeful for like where our industry is, especially in slow times for some folks. We're going to not start here in today land. We're going to go back to tomorrow land. We're going to kind of catch people up to how did you end up where you are today? And then we're going to hit on some stories along the way. So like, were you always a photographer?
True. That's a good question. I feel like, yes. I feel like we're all photographers, because we all have an eye. We all have a perspective. We all come with different backgrounds. We all have our own opinionated opinions of things. So you could translate those ideas through a vehicle of a camera and photography as a medium of art. So I think, yes, I think I've always been a photographer. We've all been photographers. And even if you don't think you're a photographer, you probably are a photographer. It's just like,
You just
it's a
don't know it yet.
skill. Yeah, it's like a muscle that you just gotta build and keep building it. Also, with that muscle is a tendon called confidence. So confidence and your skill work hand in hand, and that's overall what I guess would be a photographer or an artist. But yeah, like I said, I've been shooting ever since I got an iPhone, way back in like high school. Revealing my age here, but yeah, I got an iPhone for the first time ever, and that was the first device I had that had a camera. And I would just like take pictures of like in Philly, there's a lot of street art, a lot of like wheat
Like murals.
pastings,
Oh.
murals, wheat pastings, stickers, you name it, graffiti all over the walls. And like here and there, a lot of them would catch my eye, and I would just like take cool pictures of it. And then I got to the point where I started compositioning like people walking in, and or just like started compositioning these like stickers and like different angles and stuff like that. And I just got to that point where, and then Instagram came, and I would upload my photos on Instagram, and the filter feature was the coolest thing for me. I was like, whoa, like I could put like a sepia tone on it, or I could put this like retro vintage, like very green tinted look on it, and it looks different. And then I started incorporating flash to it, and like the tones and things would start changing. And then I discovered the S curve and like toning and all that stuff. And like I just got to the point where I had a specific edit style. with my photos, and I was like, wow. And at that point, I felt like I beat the horse with my iPhone, and like, and I was like, you know what? I think I need to step it up to the next level, which is buying a camera and like learning from that. So I bought like a mirrorless Sony A6000. So that was the first camera that I ever would say like, you know, first camera that's not an iPhone that I would say I was like, okay, this is a step towards like that career of photography or just that idea of being a photographer. And here I am now.
I love that you brought up the fact that, that was like this kind of very organic way of like looking and seeing the world, and then how it quickly evolved into like seeing compositions in a different way. And then
Mm.
when you started to upload into Instagram, like the editing piece of it kind of was like, oh right, I can further adjust my vision through
Yeah.
editing just simply with filters, right? Which I think is how a lot of us first see how we could adjust things. Like we don't necessarily know how to move the sliders or how to, make
Hmm.
all of make all those changes individually, but having those kind of like cut and paste sliders, if you will, where you're like, I could tone it down if it's too much
Yeah,
versus
yeah,
like, I
yeah.
want the full slider. And then when you go to the camera and you realize, oh man, now I have to actually export these to edit them.
Yeah.
Was that kind of like a huge, like, oh man, now I have to sit in front of the computer and like actually figure out how to make these? Or did you just still use a fairly basic, like upload to, kind of upload to one place to get it to a JPEG to shoot?
Yeah,
Or were
yeah.
you just shooting JPEGs and uploading?
Oh, I think I was just shooting JPEGs and uploading, but I th I think like well in college, I took a couple like graphic design classes because I think in college I wanted to well my background actually I have a degree in advertising, so I went to school for advertising, so I took a lot of different classes that's related to advertising, which one of them was graphic design, and I thought that I was gonna eventually like be a graphic designer, but then I soon realized like I like editing and all that stuff, but this is a little bit too much. I, and I think that still translates to where I am now and like how my art is currently, which is I'm more of this like a wabi-sabi kind of guy where it's just like it is what it is. It's kind of like that's what the universe created, and I'm just here documenting now. But back then, like I was definitely into like the editing. I feel like the editing aspect of photography further got me more into the art of photography. But then like the older I got, the less editing I did. And I'm just at a point now where I kind of went backwards where now I'm just like I shoot a lot of film and it's just like it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, you can only push film so much.
Yeah. But I love it. It's just like there's something about it that like you shoot more so you just take your time with things and you kind of be a lot more present in the moment. And I call it Jesus take the wheel photography because it's just like I see something and then I'm here in that moment and then I the moment I press that button, that chemical reaction is like you letting the universe take over and the result is the art, you know.
And I think that's an interesting perspective too, right? Is I used to shoot film. I shot a lot of film
Mhm.
too. And so I do think like there's an art to shooting film. There is a slow down process where you're like, I only have so many frames in this roll, right?
For
And
sure. Yeah.
you might shoot one, two, maybe of like a similar scene, or if you're trying to shoot through an event type of activity, you might shoot that one or two or three frames, but you're like, man, a roll 24 goes really fast.
It does. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Even like
I mean,
when you get that roll of 36, you're like, oh my God, I have like an extra like 12 photos. Like, this is amazing.
yeah, yeah. And then you start taking pictures of random things just to like fill it up.
Yeah. Where you're like, oh, I really just want those first 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find the switch is interesting. I mean, I love this. If you have more thoughts on it, I'd love for you to share
Mhm.
kind of starting with that digital, because you were very digital first. camera,
Yeah.
like phone camera, iPhone camera, to like a digital Sony mirrorless, which is like super cool. When I started, that didn't exist. To now, like you went the other way to analog. So do you find that you're, I don't want to say more intentional because there is that slow down process with analog, but when it comes to that approach of documentarian,
Yeah.
whether you're shooting film or you're shooting digital, do you feel that there's like, do you step into a different mindset when you're in one or the other?
I would say so, yes, but then like I wouldn't heavily emphasize that one is better than the other because in the end of the day, like I'm a paid professional and I get assignments and depending on what the assignment is, like I have to use the right tool for it. And sometimes I mean I would love to just shoot everything on film. But also like, there's people that are trusting me with their money and budget, so I have to provide them like uh, uh, the right necessary assets, and you need digital to kind of like help you like just be that safety net of like creating the right images. But I'm at that point now where I just shoot both because I shoot a lot on the film and then I have the digital as backups, you know what I mean? But sometimes, most of the times, like the digitals do save me, and like I do get like different looks from that, and it's nice to see the images while you're shooting on a job. You know what I mean? But sometimes, like if it's a little bit like of a lesser um, commercial focus role assignment, then I'll go straight like film.
Yeah, I mean, I do see the the comfort in kind of having both, right? Or the added value of having both, maybe is a better way to put it. Where
Mhm,
if you're on assignment and you do need to shoot tethered so the client can pick on site, right?
mhm.
Versus okay, we got that shot, and then you might grab your film camera and you might snap one or two of whatever's happening, and then cool, and I got something for me. Like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
fill
yeah.
the personal well. So when you decided to flip the switch on like, yeah, can I make money on this, or can I step into getting clients? What was like the first thing you tried out?
I think honestly, I've been getting like wedding inquiries ever since I started with my iPhone. Because and I was really shocked because you want me to shoot your wedding?
On my
You know what I
phone?
mean? Yeah, but then like like that was like 10 years ago where I didn't know anything about business or even photography at that point, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just taking all these with my iPhone, you know what I mean? 5 years ago when I launched my LLC and became full-time freelance, a lot of the gigs that I started off with were like real estate. And then here and there would just be like portraits of like friends. And then I got to that point where I'm like, now what, And then I started trying to find more inspiration, and a lot of the inspiration that I got was through magazines, and through those magazines I realized, what is selling and what kind of photography is trending, or what do I need to learn to kind of like make this dream of being a photographer or making a steady income out of it. And but how can I find it in a way that like still fills my heart and is not like work, you know what I mean? And that's where I got into like food, and then I realized like, I had a couple friends that opened restaurants, and I would look at their restaurants, and this was also around 2020 during the pandemic when everything was slow. Um, my friend opened up a restaurant and she took everything with her iPhone, and I was like, "Can I take some photos for you? Like let me just test it out because like let me just have fun with it." And then I took the pictures, and then those pictures kind of were used for like local PR, and then it kind of snowballed from there where editors started reaching out, and
Wow,
that's
that
how
was
I
a
got
good
into
gig.
food.
I'm like, that
Yeah,
was a good gig. But that was also like great on you to be like, hey, like I see that you're doing this. Can I try? Right?
yeah,
Can I try to like help you like with your PR? Can I help you with your marketing? And that opened up clearly that opened up opportunity for you to do more of that. And some of
yeah.
that you've done for different publications. And I don't know if you want to talk about any of that, or like how you have used some of that to leverage to do further editorial work, as
Mhm.
well as maybe get other brands or restaurants.
Yeah. I mean, Carhartt Work in Progress is like one of my favorite brands in general, but like just like that tagline of work in progress, like I'm still like we're all work in progresses. And for me, like uh I would still say I'm so new to this editorial industry, this editorial world, even just like commercial photography in general. So I'm always going to be a student and I'm still learning. Um, and a lot of it is just business communications and learning how to like pitch yourself and pitch your work and creating that portfolio that you want to shoot. And you know, that first Eater article that I got was it was like a Pokemon badge to me. And it was like, holy cow, like I got this like achievement of like being published or um, some people may think it's just a either online article, but for me, it was like the biggest thing in the world because I was just like, it was a confirmation that like, wow, this is a step towards the direction I want to be in, and whether it's a local publication or a local outlet, just using your image and crediting you that way, um, you gotta like look at it as a win for yourself because as a freelancer, like the only you don't get a lot of support system, but the biggest support system is just yourself, and sometimes you need that mindset of like, this is a win, and what can you do with this win to win even more? And I would use like that that first public that first like editorial piece as like a a safety net or a ground to like say that like, hey, I've shot for this. This is what I've done so far. This is what I could do, And yeah, the editorial world is just, it's not the most paying like scene, but I think it's good leverage as for a photographer to kind of use as a foundation to get even more editorials in, or just like it's kind of like a way of marketing yourself too. Yeah, because if your name is attached to certain publications, it's good for the SEO. It's good for just you in general with your um and yeah, future is bright if you continue to just have that kind of mindset of just keep building.
Like, I just want to reiterate this is one, it's about pitching, and it's all about like what you started with this conversation. You've got to have that creative eye, and then you have to also leverage that with your confidence, and
Yeah.
then the confidence has to get you through the door of so that you share that work, which is the pitching. And then when you do get that win, no matter how small it is, build it onto your foundation of confidence. Oh, I got that Eater win. I love that you call it a Pokemon badge. That's so awesome. It is that little badge of honor, that little like, hey, I did that thing and I'm heading in the direction that I want to go. And I think that really helps where you really touched on a biggie here, which is mindset. Trying to maintain that positive outlook, trying to realize like you're moving forward. And sometimes you move in very micro steps. And then sometimes it's like you get that big leap, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that you had mentioned to me a while ago, which about this editorial stuff, which I think is overlooked and maybe even not talked about, but it's kind of what happens on the back end of editorial. Like you might go in for Eater and shoot that job. And then what happens is that restaurant might come back and be like, hey, PJ, you shot our restaurant. Like, we love the images. Can we license them? Or can we buy them from you? Or can you come back and shoot our menu? So can you talk to like how some of that back end stuff that is not really the initial shoot, but that might end up happening?
Yeah. I've had several instances where I would like shoot an editorial assignment for a publication, and the restaurant 9 times out of 10 they'll love the photos and they'll want to use it. And um, yeah, like learning. I think the biggest learning curve in the industry of photography or just commercial photography or media in general is like learning your usage and licensing and like I guess it varies. It really varies on the professional and like the industry as well. But like just learning that like that your work is art and that you have that power to kind of like value it, and people understanding that value is oftentimes the hardest part about all of this, because it's that's where your confidence needs to be shown in these like negotiations. And I think that was why the conversation we had like a few weeks ago, where I was like, I need like an agent or something. Like it's draining. It is very draining because you work up proposals, uh you work up like quotes and estimates, and getting turned down, getting rejected from these things, it hurts. It hurts a lot. And I think that's just natural. It's just natural. It's just human. It's very human to feel that rejection, and it could definitely shoot your confidence down. And it's like definitely some of the toughest parts about entrepreneurship and just being a starving artist in the sense, because you're going to get rejected a lot. But when the yeses come, it's confidence building, and it's really affirming. And like it's all about just finding the right people and the right um, people, finding the right people who believe in you and will guide you and are patient with you. And the only thing you could do is just mirror that and give it back times 10 and reward them with your art.
Well, and I think you could really drive that point home if you can share your story of being the first time you shot for New York Times.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, the New York Times assignment was more of I actually shot for one publication who featured this restaurant. And then those images were used. That restaurant loved the images. And then I think a year or two later, um, New York Times wanted to use the images, and you know, even and then the restaurant used it. The restaurant gave the images to New York Times, but that was still like early in my career too. Like that was about like 2 years ago, where I was still learning usage and licensing. And honestly, I didn't get paid for that, but for me, it was like it was a win for me because I really supported that restaurant, and I knew that owner, and we had a connection. Um, but we kind of grew at the same time because like me and that restaurant grew at the same time, and it was just a win for him, so it was a win for me too. And all I wanted was just credit, honestly. But that piece itself was just it was just a good piece too. Like I said, it was a Pokemon badge, even though I didn't get paid like that for it. Um, I mean, I still got paid, but it wasn't from directly from that. And I think that's how editorial works too. There's ways where people have jobs, people have roles where they're in, and they have to find ways to like save budgets too. So yeah,
Well, on the usage and licensing front, right? So
yeah.
you started your LLC 5 years ago, but even before that, you were kind of shooting kind of on the side, doing your thing, right? Shooting weddings on your iPhone. I say that jokingly. I say that
Yeah.
jokingly, but
Yeah. I do not do that now.
but like talk about the usage education, right? The licensing and usage
Yeah.
education, because I know you took my and Katie's workshop on usage and
Hmm.
licensing, but even at that point, like this is a conversation that I don't think people talk enough about, right? We don't really get into the weeds in just general conversation. You might have a buddy you reach out to and you're like, hey, got this job. Like, what do you think? I went to the calculators, but I'm not really sure. Or I went to a photo editor and I looked at different things, but I'm still not sure.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like all the different things and pathways and trial and error that you have done, over the last, whatever, 5-10 years to figure out really how do you talk about it and where
Yeah.
and I mean, we all start with not talking about it. I mean, that's the truth. Because we don't know. Like you,
Yeah.
I came from the consumer side. I shot kids and families. Like I didn't think about licensing. I'm like, whatever it's going on their wall, it's going in an
Yeah.
album, right? Same with weddings, it's going on an album, it might go on their Facebook or their Instagram.
Hmm.
Not really thinking about, oh well, if I give the images to the vendors, that's actually commercial work because now they're using those images to sell to get more clients.
Yeah.
That never, I mean, there was part of that conversation in the wedding world, but I'm more curious about how did you grow, how did you learn, who you seek out, what education did you use?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still growing and I still fail and I still learn, but that's what all this whole journey is about. And like your class was actually the very first class that I took, actually first pieces of information I've really learned about usage and licensing, you know. And I'm not here to advertise you or anything, but like, yeah, like I'm giving you your flowers that like you and Katie were the ones who really opened up my mind about the idea that, you know, this is how it should be and this is how the industry does it, you know. But like I think photography is, as a career or a profession is like it's such a huge spectrum, you know. There's hobbyists and then there's people who are trying to make money from it, but it's still hobby at the same time.
Right, kind of like your weekend warrior.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got people who are full-time freelance and still learning, but then they hit this like ceiling of there's only so much you can do as a freelancer until you get to the point where, okay, if you want to land deals with Nike, if you want to land deals with like Walmart or all these big brands, you need to be represented or have an agency background or be with an agency. And then that's that ceiling of like, I would say of you know, making real big bucks and stuff like that. But, you know, ways I've educated myself is taking that workshop that you had, just learning from other professionals in my area, having those conversations. That's the tough part because I feel like it's a everybody does things differently, so sometimes they keep their information to themselves, which I get it. It's respectable, you know. People work their whole years and people work years and decades to create what they have and you know you can't just give information like that to anybody who asks, you know. And it's a very trusted thing to it's like if you know you know kind of thing, but I'm
Right,
not
it's
saying
like
it's
it's
gate.
kind of like that intellectual property, right? It's like, well, I
Yeah,
developed this idea or I developed this way of doing
right.
something.
And also like when I remember when I first started I was like, oh, these people are just gatekeepers, you know. They don't want to tell this, but then when you get to that point it's like I can see why, but I don't consider that. I don't think that's gatekeeping. I think that's you know you worked hard for it and you created a process and you can't just give that away to people. You know, you can't just tell people how to do it. You could I appreciate people like you who just guide you know you got to guide people and you can't give them the answer right there because everybody does things differently. Everybody's prices are different. Everybody has different lifestyles. So, you know, what like 50K to somebody is 100K to somebody or 100K to somebody is 50K to somebody else. You know what I mean? So that's why it varies on your skill and also your experience and the amount of years you've been doing this and until you get to that point where you know your numbers and also the way that you live, like do you live lavishly or do you live very like
Right.
conservatively, you know what I mean? Are your expenses high or your expenses low? That if your expenses are high then you should probably charge higher. If your expenses are low then you could probably do you wouldn't mind doing $1,000 job or a $500 job, you know what I mean? It's different for everybody. And honestly, like it all goes back to you and learning to be comfortable with yourself and perfecting these little things of like organization and just staying on top of things and um budgeting. Like all these things I'm still learning these things, you know. I went to school and I felt like I went to school and I was a B minus student my whole entire life, but I've never studied my entire life. I just kind of was like cruise through life. I cruise through school, you know. Um and I never really took certain classes seriously. Like I was not a math guy. I'm not a math Asian. I was a writing Asian. Like yeah, I'm not a numbers guy. So that's what I'm learning right now. It's all discipline. Having that discipline in yourself.
Yeah, and I do think it's somewhat of sometimes we really limit ourselves. Now, I am a math nerd. Like I was an economics major. I was a financial analyst for a bank for over
Yeah.
10 years.
Oh
But
yeah. That's great
but
background.
but the reality is like, oh, and I mean, I had a when I mentored under I was an apprentice under a business coach, and she had told
Mhm.
me, oh, you're a really interesting blend of like the analytical side with the creative side, and you're that little Venn diagram right in the middle. And I was like, what do you mean? Like everybody's got to know numbers, blah, blah, blah. And then I started to get more and more into photography, and I was like, oh, you're right. Like I didn't realize that not everybody
Yeah.
can math, right? So
Yeah. I mean, I could admit that I can't math like that.
but
But
here's the things
I
that
need to learn.
I will tell you. If you
Hmm.
can add and subtract, multiply and divide on a calculator that you could use your iPhone for,
Hmm.
you can do the math.
Yeah.
And like if you're not scared to look at a bank statement or a credit card statement, or even
Hmm.
if you use your digital wallet on your phone, you could even use that as your little tally. I think what you pointed out was the budget, and not necessarily a client budget. We're not talking about client side facing stuff here. We're talking about your
Hmm.
own personal, how do you run your life budget? And then how do you run
Yeah.
your business budget? Um, and if you know like the numbers that it costs you to run your business, and you know the numbers that it costs you to run your life, and you're really honest with like, here's everything in my life. Here's all my expenses. Here's the money I want to save for X, Y, and Z things.
Hmm.
Here's the money I want for my retirement. Here's the money I want for my investments. Here's the money I want to send my kids to camp or whatever. It's like if you have every line item in there that you can think of, and then you get
Hmm.
a number at the end, and then you look at, well, what does my business cost me? You know, and all the numbers that go in there. And for you, you have a studio line in there. Not everybody
Hmm.
has overhead like a studio, but you know, you got your studio and your insurance and your website and anything that you do paid marketing for. And you're, you know, maybe you have a budget for, you know, upgrading equipment or repairs or whatever that those line items are. And then you add that number together, keeping into consideration if you have a dual income household, you're not responsible for wholly taking care of that personal number.
Hmm.
Or if you have other income streams or things like that, consider that as part of like the package. So you can really see like, okay, at the end of the day, my business number is X, my personal number is Y. When I add them together, I get Z. That's the number I got to make every year.
Yeah.
Right. And then you could start working backwards to get yourself like, what is my get out of bed number?
Yeah. 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 That's very important. I've I'm fortunate. I have like a good buddy of mine who has like producer background who's been helping me with this kind of stuff. Because I think when you start stepping into like the commercial world, like you need to know these things and you need to like have these numbers in mind already, so that way when you're throwing out estimates and quotes, um, you're not underselling yourself, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I do
Yeah.
think there's like an average, right? So like we were just talking about editorial, and we know consistently editorial is not like the highest paying job around.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's $50 and sometimes it's whatever, it could be like 400 or $500 if you're lucky. And
Yeah.
but when you get down to like the average job where you're like, oh, I shot these couple editorials, I shot, you know, this like local brand, I shot this restaurant, and then maybe you had like a mid-tier job, and then you look at that income across the board and you go, okay, on average I hit whatever it might be, right? 1,500 or 2,000 or 800. I mean, again, don't know where the numbers need to lie for people, but as long as you're kind of hitting that average or above average every time, then you're like golden.
Hmm.
You're like, yeah, I'm hitting my numbers. I'm getting my numbers. I'm getting my steps in. And then anything over that average, you're like, whew, that goes in like the coffer. I'm going to save that. That's like the rainy day money. That's going to like make me interest on my money while I might hit a slow period in the summer or
Hmm.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the thing. We don't always look at like that we just look at the jumping needle, like, oh my God, I got this much money, and then I got this much money, and then I didn't make any money, and then I did this for,
Yeah.
a collaboration, and I'm really, that what that is just marketing. So I do love that, it's kind of like you got to step back and look at it from afar and then kind of see like, where's the through line? What is the average line? And this is why like there's all the hot topic of like, can you get a retainer from a client? Then that you're going to get a consistent
Yeah.
income every month. And it kind of takes you off the freelance roller coaster.
Yeah.
But speaking of expenses, and I already touched on the fact that you have a studio, I want to
Yeah.
know more about, when did you decide that PJ needs a studio? For me to create, I need a studio.
The moment I realized I needed a studio was definitely the moment where I took like a deep look into my work and I realized what is what am I doing that other photographers are doing? Like what is the difference between my photography and like the big commercial photographers are doing, you know? And what I noticed was that I kind of need to get back into like portraiture or just like getting back into like connecting with humans again. Because like I said, I was doing a lot of food stuff. And I was doing like some product stuff too, but then I realized like I had goals too of like one of my goals is like I want to shoot for Time magazine, like front cover, or like Vogue magazine or something like Rolling Stones, something like very iconic. Just for myself. I think that's kind of like a legacy thing for me. Like one day I want to get on a cover of these big magazines. And what I realize is like I need to be able to connect with my subject and I need to be able to create such compelling images in a space where I could either A, control it or B, just be like, you know, my own space in a sense. And then that's when I realized I think I want to get into more of a studio. And actually, I feel like at that point, I've kind of not mastered, but like I felt like my style has touched every aspect of photography, and a lot of it was just very environmental and like run and gun photography. So a missing piece in my portfolio was like studio work. And I was like, this is when I realized I have this like I wouldn't say weakness, but this is this part of my portfolio that I need to work on. And that was studio. And also like, when it comes to studio, it's not just taking cool photos in a studio. There's ethics involved in terms of like how to interact with a client, how to interact with a team, how to have uh, you know, how to use a C stand, what does a what does this gadget do? You know what I mean? There's so many things in studio photography that um, need to be learned. And I think when you learn studio or when you have a studio or you have that privilege to like manage a studio, um, it's an opportunity to like evolve as a photographer and as a creative because there's now you're in an environment where you're surrounded by your tools and you need to respect your tools and you need to teach people how to be comfortable with themselves in a space that they're not familiar with. So I think studio is such a big learning curve in photography or just having that a studio is a big learning curve as a photographer because um it's like a canvas, and what you do with this canvas is will help will push you to where you want to be. And I thought that if I get a studio or if I manage a studio, I'll create more compelling images.
And has that happened?
Oh yes, for sure. Like you know, I used to shoot a lot of like direct flash back then, or I used to shoot a lot of like natural light. But then, you start learning like 2 light setups, 3 light setups, 4 light setups. And before I used to be confused. I'm like, why do they need so many lights for for these things? And then you start realizing, oh, you could control the highlights more, or you could create more like uh depth in certain things with lighting if you like the background, or uh separate the subject from the background more. And then yeah, there's so many things. Or you start learning what a negative fill is, and creating those shadows and stuff like that. Um, or just I love V flats. Like that's what I like. Ever since I got into a studio, I love V flats. Like I love shooting with V flats. It's like my favorite thing. Um,
Using
and
them
I hope
both
that
for
answered the question.
using them for both positive and negative fill.
Yeah, or just indirect lighting and bounce flash. I even use like V flats as like sets where I'm like, this could be a background, or this could be part of the set. I think I got into like I feel like my studio work. I like showing the studio. I actually like showing quote unquote studio photography because I like showing people in the studio. Because I think we got to that point where you could shoot a portrait and it's just like, okay, we get it. They're in a studio with a white wall. But like if you show the C stands, if you show like the Apple boxes, and you show the lights
Modifiers.
and stuff,
Hmm.
yeah, modifiers, all that stuff, it shows like this person who's in front of the camera is a work in progress. Like I said, work in progress. Like we're all work in progress. We're never in our final forms. We're only in our final forms until you die, and that's how your story is written. But how is your story written currently? We're always evolving, we're always growing. That's why I like to show the imperfections in a lot of my photography. I like to show that like that's that wabi-sabi approach to it.
I mean, I love hearing how and why and what what it's evolved into and the things that you've learned. Has it also allowed you? I know something that's super close to your heart is community.
Yes.
And so has having a studio allowed you to really build that side of your, kind of the personal want, but also like the professional side of building community?
Yeah, I think having a studio, or managing this studio, and having that ability to bring whoever from the outside world into your space, um helps you create your community, or helps you connect with your community more, because it gives you, instead of me going out for coffee with somebody, I could just bring them to my studio and we can just hang out. We don't even have to take pictures. We just hang out, just be in the environment, and talk. And then they see it, they're like, "Oh my God, this is an awesome space," and then it just makes taking photos with people easier, and you can learn about people more. Um, because I think you get that intimacy in the studio where it's just you and the subject, and you're connecting and talking, and then that's how you can get somebody who normally doesn't smile for you in front of the camera, because you have this space that's comfortable, that where they're comfortable in your space.
I love the idea of having a space that actually you can bring people in. So whether that is like to bring crew in and do a test shoot,
Mhm.
or just bring in your own like photography crew so everybody can kind of hang out and network and chit chat and get to know one another. I just think is really
Mhm.
really cool. And I know that you've done a lot of community building. Like that is something that is like kind of baked into your, I don't know, to your DNA.
Mhm.
That is like who you are. So talk to us a little bit about, tell me about, I know you've done photo walks. You just did this amazing food
Mhm.
show. You've done a few collabs with other organizations in Philly. So why, how, what, like tell us about community. Where does it show up for you? How do you foster it?
Sure, yeah. Community for me is everything, because and I feel like, you know, it's kind of like the trend now, or everybody's trying to like create their own community or whatever. But like, I don't look at it that way. I think of it as like just being a human among where you are. And community is really big for me because, as an immigrant, my family immigrating here from the Philippines, I had to find ways to make friends or find ways to be myself and like learn my environment, and I was fortunate to live in a neighborhood that fostered community where, I had a rec center that I could go to, and that's where I learned breakdancing, and I connected with people there, and I connected with, like I was like this like Filipino kid who had no friends, and I went to this spot that taught me breakdancing, and I learned hip hop, and uh I learned how to make friends through dance, through music, and that was a big part of my DNA growing up because that community that I made or like made friends with, it carried on to what I'm doing now because I learned that in order to be comfortable with your art or yourself, you have to be comfortable with your community too. And you have to in Philly, there's a lot of Philly pride where everybody's always talking about Philly and everybody's very proud to be a Philadelphian. We talk about our cheesesteaks, we talk about our sports. That's why the sports here is so passionate because we just have a standard of hardworking people. And if you don't meet that standard of showing effort or being a hard worker, you're not Philly. We don't consider you Philly, you know.
No cheesesteaks for you.
No cheesesteaks for you. So community for me is just connecting with people who are like-minded, who have the same vibe or the same frequency. And I like to every connection that I make, like I always want to help people. The why in myself and the why I exist in this planet is because I'm here to help and I'm here to help people and I was raised that way. My parents were very loving and showed me love, and like from there I learned love, and like love is giving back to people and helping.
I love that you had loving parents and they taught you how to love others. I mean, that's just I hope everybody experiences that at some point in their life if they didn't have it as a kid. But two, I love that you showed up at a rec center and like learned how to hip hop and break dance. One, where's those moves? Can we find them online? That's what I'm really hoping to see now.
No,
I
no, no,
want I
no,
want like
no.
I want the PJ like update of like here's the latest of my breakdance moves. Um so a little funny little side story for you is when I was a kid, like little kid, I think I was
Uh-huh.
about 6. Me, my brother, and my 3 cousins, we all had a little pseudo breakdance group. And everybody had breakdance names,
Whoops.
and it was really
Cut off there.
it was really really funny. So we would do little dance things in the backyard as our little dance troupe. I mean, we were horrible, but it was really fun. So yeah, like my older cousin, he was an amazing dancer. He was the bad breaker. That's what I remember. And I would wear my little like mouse slippers, and I was like the mousy breaker or something like that. Anyway, just really funny. Takes me back to being a little kid. Um, but I think there's like these formative years, especially when we're in kind of like our early teens or even like preteen, and those people that we meet at those periods in our lives can really elevate us and like carry on with us, especially through like the
Hmm.
high school years. And now that we're all like interconnected forever, all right, it can carry you all the way through your college years and into your adult life. So I love that you kind of had this great insular group that brought you in. You got to do these things together. You form these bonds. And then as everybody grows and moves into different things, everybody then gets to still continue to support one another. I think that Philly pride, right, runs deep. I mean, like I said when we first got on here, like my dad's from Philly and like it got passed down to me. I also learned about the pretzel phenomenon that is only in Philly, by the way.
Yeah,
The great
I didn't
soft,
know that.
oh, the great soft pretzels of Philadelphia that come as a grid, not in a pretzel shape.
Yeah.
You guys eat more,
They don't have pretzels where you're at?
not like that.
Oh, wow.
The
I
soft
guess I'm just
pretzel,
like,
the soft
yeah, I
pretzel
grew up
thing
to
is a
it.
Philadelphia thing. And my dad used to bring, like, he would go back and visit my aunt and he would bring them back to California for us. And my brother and I were like, make sure you wrap them up so they don't get all like stale and hard. And then we like, I don't know, there was some, research that came out like who eats the most pretzels in the nation, and it's Philadelphia by far.
Wow.
Because there's like two pretzel factories that like are just in Philadelphia that make those amazing pretzels. So enjoy, by the way, because if you go somewhere else, you're not getting them.
Oh,
Um,
wow. You
you're
just
gonna,
you just gave me a photo idea.
yeah, you got to do like something crazy with pretzels and people.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how do you eat it? Do you dip it in mustard? Are you like a wacky like
I'm a
cheese
mustard
eater?
guy.
You're a mustard guy. Yeah, I
Yeah,
could go
like
plain. I could go mustard.
I like to break like the legs and then dip it with mustard. Spicy mustard.
Oh, see, I'll go classic French
Okay. French.
or cheese. Like I don't
Cheese is
discriminate
good
there.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have you ever had the cinnamon? They have like cinnamon like
like a cinnamon, like almost like frosting.
oh not cinnamon, sorry, caramel. You dip it
No,
in caramel, hot caramel. Ooh, different.
see, you're gonna have a flavor impacted pretzel shoot coming up. I know it. Um, in your studio.
Yeah.
So talking about being an immigrant to this country, right, and kind
Yeah.
of getting a flavor for where you live, and building community is you're part of Diversify Photo.
Yeah.
So where did you discover them? Why that group? Like there's all these other groups out there, but why Diversify?
Um, Honestly, that's a great question because I don't really truly remember how I discovered Diversify Photo. Um, Actually, I think I discovered it through on YouTube. Do you know
Okay.
like Pauly B? Have you ever watched like Pauly B
I
on
don't think
YouTube?
so. But now I'm
He's
gonna
like,
write it down.
yeah, check him out. He's like this like street photographer based out in New York, and he does like walkie-talkie. They're called walkie-talkies, where he like follows a photographer and like kind of does like follows them around while they take photos and like interviews them.
Oh,
And then that's
that would
where
be my jam. I would love
yeah, yeah, yeah. Check it out.
that.
And then that's where I discovered the great photographer Andre Wagner,
Mm.
who's this African American documentary photographer based out in Brooklyn. And I discovered his work and how impactful his work was and how beautiful it was. And he only shot in black and white. And I think I remember seeing somewhere on his like website or something like that that he was like a diversified photo member. And then I clicked that, and then I discovered diversified photo, and then they just have a simple process where you just like kind of just sign up. And I think I signed up during the period that they were like accepting applicants. And then I signed up, put all of my information in, and I don't even know their process of how they kind of like select members like that. But I think a year went by, and then I got this random email that, "Hey, we see that you applied. Um, we your work is amazing and stuff like that. We see that you're like professional or like trying to be like professional like that. And you're not a member yet, but we'll add you to the upcoming list." So I was like on the upcoming list of 2023, which I was like, oh, I don't know what that is. But I thought it was pretty cool because like they every year they have full members lists where people join the association and become full members. And then also every year they pick photographers who aren't there yet but are on the way. So they're the upcoming list. And so I was an upcoming member 2023, and then it wasn't until last year that I got inducted into the full membership. But it's a really cool like organization because like they have so many resources for people who are following it or are in it that help like photographers even like with bids. They just provide a lot of resources of like grants, opportunities, and connecting you with editors and stuff like that. um and yeah, it's a really cool experience. Sure.
Awesome. I mean, I follow them. I've known about them for some time. I think I found them in 2021. I learned about them.
Hmm.
Um, and I just think the projects they work on and the people that they do highlight, um, just there's a lot of inspiration there. There's a lot of people doing really cool work. And if you're
Yeah,
looking to be inspired, I highly recommend going and checking out who's on the roster and
yeah,
going down the rabbit hole, right? Just like clicking on everything, seeing what people are up to. Um,
yeah. And
there's
I think it's
amazing
a,
people there.
and for me, like that, like being part of that was just another affirmation for me of like I'm in the right path too, because like some of the members in there are like Pulitzer Prize winners, really, really like prestiged like photojournalists and editors, and just to be among them is a very reassuring thing for me as a photographer and as an artist. Um, yeah,
So we keep touching on your path, right? These milestones
yeah.
in the path. When you look forward, it could be to the end of this year. We're in 2025 currently, maybe in 6 months, or even let's go a full year from now, right?
Mhm.
Like, let's say like end of 26. God, that's weird to say. Um, but like 18 months from now, like, is there any other milestones you are seeing out in the horizon that you're driving towards?
Um, Damn, that's a deep question, honestly. Because I try to look like,
I was trying to give you short term and long term.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like just building out a team. Because I have goals of just owning my own studio. Like this studio that I'm in, I don't own this. I'm like leasing off of somebody. So like I would love to have my own personal space, and like, have my own like setup of like how I would do my studio like that, and just building a team as well, having a team of like, or just like a roster of people who I could depend on in terms of like if I need stylists or like hair and makeup, or even just other photographers to like bounce ideas off, or and like pass work to each other, like really building that community that I really want to create. And but right now the community that I have, it's photographers, chefs, entrepreneurs, um, stylists too. But like, yeah, it's just furthering my community and seeing how far this like idea of networking and like working with each other can go, especially here in Philly. There's this thing in Philly where we try to be like New York or we try to be like LA, but the like we don't have this like sense of like helping each other out, because I feel like a lot of people here reach ceilings, and then once they see that ceiling, they need to move to New York or go to LA. But how can we do it here and
Hmm.
keep it all in Philly? You know what I mean?
That's an interesting observation. Um, it's how do you keep the brotherhood, to use a Philly reference, together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The city of brotherly love. So, um, I think that's an interesting thing to maybe actually like write down on a post-it or something where you could see it often,
Yeah.
and reflect or project what that could look like, and just kind of marinate on that, because I think that's an idea. There's a kernel there that you could really
Yeah.
explore and say, well, why do you feel that you need to go to New York, or why do you feel like you need to go to LA? What is limiting here in Philadelphia? How do we move the ceiling? How do we bust the ceiling? How do we make a new
Yeah.
floor, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting and audacious thing to chase.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Because I feel like there's so much talent here. But they all, I wouldn't say all, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but like what I've seen is this like uh people reach ceilings, and then some of these ceilings are only broken by being outsourced to New York or getting those representations from other places. But uh I would love to see how we could build something all in-house in Philly and like, you know, we don't need to be New York. We don't need to be LA. We could just be Philly and still have that economy here, because there's a lot of big brands here and they all outsource their work. You know, what's wrong with the talent here? Where's that missing communication,
Right. And maybe it's about going like leaning into that advertising background of yours, right? And knowing what you know about the craft that you've been in now for a number of years, and leaning into the community and having that open dialogue and saying like, how do we create that environment so those brands know that we're here, know we can execute, we can start to build trust through our networks. I do think that yeah, I don't know. I see that as being like a really cool thing to go after, and something that, if you start planting that seed with your community and having those conversations in your space, and just like, let's just brainstorm. Let's get out the whiteboard
Yeah.
pens and, get writing, and somebody take
Hmm.
notes, and everybody gets to, add to the mix of what that could look like and how to develop those conversations and have this over meals. And one of the things that just popped into my head is like, there was some kind of creative dinner
Hmm.
that you guys held? Like when I say you guys, it was like you and God, I don't know, like 4 or 5 other collaborators that all kind of came
Yeah.
together to do this dinner. I could see this kind of conversation as like a brainstorm over that type of environment.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And you're speaking about the maker's table.
Yes, the
Um,
maker's
yeah,
table.
yeah, yeah, the maker's table. That's this project that I've involved with because I got invited to the first dinner that my friend Shelby, who's the co-creator of it, Shelby and Alex, where they had that experience of like we want to connect with creatives, we want to connect with entrepreneurs and find that community. And at that point, when I think it started like 2 years ago, there wasn't a place where creatives and entrepreneurs can come together and connect and talk. And that's where they created the Maker's Table. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the first people in that dinner. Um, and the thing is, like, it's like when you join the dinner, you have to contribute to the dinner outside of the food. And my contribution was photography. And um, so I shot the event and they loved the photos. And then from there, I've kind of become like the in-house photographer for every dinner now. But like every dinner that they have is like different topics of like one could be about brick and mortar businesses, one could be about women entrepreneurs, and another could be about restaurateurs or chefs. And like all of these like dinners were different topics. So they're kind of like galleries if you think about it. You could do a gallery on food, you could do a gallery on street photography, you could do a
Yeah.
gallery on fashion. So like that idea and concept of curating dinners of different topics and industries with the attendees being in those topics and industries was just a very niche and curated dinners where people are connecting with each other. And I think it's beautiful because all the connections I made there, they've all become part of my community too. And it's like I am at this point now where I have this huge network of people who I know and what they do, doing cool things, but they also don't know the other person on the other side. But I'm able to bridge these things and connect the dots and be like, I think you should meet this person. You don't have to work with them, but I think you guys have this vibe. Like there's something there, you know what I mean? Whether it's working together or just being friends. Because I think being an adult, it's hard to make friends now. I think we all came from relationships where we had friends were either through work or through school, or your childhood friends. That's it. I think, but that once you become an adult, it's like, okay, how do you make friends with the outside world?
Yeah, I've had to learn that all over again, moving to a new country. In my adult years, yeah. Where do you show up? How do you
Yeah.
bridge the gap? Um, and how do you say hello, right? Like, how do you realize, like, oh, this person, and once you start to meet those people and you
Yeah.
start mixing in the different worlds, then yeah, I get it. I get being like, oh, this person needs to meet that person. And you get to lean into your superpower of
Yeah.
connecting people. One of the things, though, that was another little feather in your cap, or a Pokemon badge, if you will, is recently you had a big publication come out
Ooh, yeah.
that you were super proud about. I was super stoked to see it. And I still think you should be sharing it everywhere, even though it's already like a month old, but it's still very cool. And so I'm going to use that as like a little highlight for, something that just happened. So tell us about how.
Hmm.
I'm not spoiling it. No spoiler alert. Um, Tell us how that came about and what it was and what it meant to you.
Yeah, so the that thing was my recent Bon Appetit image that was on print and also digital. But it's funny because um I would say this was a proof of manifestation for me because I think a year or two ago I said out loud that I want to get I want to shoot for Bon Appetit or I want to shoot for Food and Wine, which I also did Food and Wine a couple years. I mean, a couple months before this one. So, um, but like, I wanted to get on major publication of like of whether it was food, fashion, or whatever. And Bon Appetit was one, like, if not the one or two on my list of like publications that like, hey, I want to get on this publication. And I got there, but how I got there was kind of crazy because one, I said it out loud to myself. And I think that's how manifestation works. You have to say it out loud. Your ears have to physically hear it come out of your mouth. You know what I mean? The universe won't give it to you instantly. It'll guide you to it. And the moment I said that, I even told my one friend too, who's also a big producer, amazing director. His name is Elijah Crawford. You should meet him. He's amazing. Um, I met my friend Elijah Crawford, and we were just talking about goals with each other. And one of the goals I told him was like, Bon Appetit. And then he was like, "Oh, you should meet my homie Mark." And then he was like, he showed me his Instagram, and he showed me like who he was and how he knew him. And I was like, "Wow, this guy, I need to meet this guy." So I followed him, and then I asked him for a coffee just to meet, and then that's how I connected with a visual editor from Bon Appetit, and a lot of editorial or a lot of just this industry in general, or a lot of photography and entrepreneurship is just connections and making networks and being friends with people. You know what I mean? So after that coffee conversation I had with that editor, we hit it off because yeah, there was a lot of commonality between me and him, and not just like industry, but just as humans. We had a lot of things in common. We had a lot of interest in the same things, and that was just a sign that hey, I think this person could be my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just that simple.
Hmm.
It wasn't about Bon Appetit, honestly. I mean, yes, it was about Bon Appetit, but like
Right.
it wasn't about that, like, oh my God, I'm using this person to get to this. It wasn't about that at all. We generally had a connection and we made friends and we would hang out and have conversations. And then it wasn't until a year later that he hit me up randomly after doing so much other food stuff that I've been doing in the city, that he hit me up and was just like, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you." He didn't really tell me what it was, and then I did it, and then next thing you know, it was on print, and yeah, that's kind of how
That's
that worked.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But like the key thing was, it was just like, yes, you have to be strategic with like certain things, and like if you need to connect with people or you want to achieve a goal, there's a strategy to it, but also at the same time, like you can't connect with everybody. You have to find a way to be human and connect with people. And that takes you for a lot further than the strategy of finding out who you need to know, just being human and just relating to people and having that common interest of life.
You make a great point. Like there is a strategy to figure out who those people are that you want the introduction to.
Hmm.
But when you do get that introduction, it isn't all about hire me, hire me, hire me. It's really about connecting on your interests, how you see the
Hmm.
world, what do they like, what do they see in the world? Um, and I love that you guys had this commonality, and it almost made me think like, oh, you went for like that first it's like I went for a first coffee and I would totally have a second date with him. Right? It's
Is
like,
that,
but
yeah,
like I
because
would
that's
hang
what
out
it
with this
is.
person again.
Yeah, it's like dating. Like networking is dating pretty much. Because like as entrepreneurs or as like business to business, there needs to be a relationship. It can't always just be transactional. Because once it's transactional, you may not come back, or they may not come back to you. You know what I mean? Because um, yeah, like learning how to be transactional and not is definitely a hard learning curve in business
Oh, for sure.
because it's all communication.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the reality is that if you build a relationship, then you have the potential for working on different projects with people. They're more apt to pass your name around, but also then you get to know somebody who you actually connect with and maybe you go and hang out with outside of work. Where if it is transactional, it's typically a one-off
Mhm.
thing, right? Like we know you can do X, Y, and Z. You have the skill set. We're going to hire you to do that. Thanks, PJ. And then they never talk to you again.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's awesome one that you said this out loud to a buddy who was like, hey, I can make that connection for you, or I can further that dream of yours. So super cool. And I encourage everybody to say it out loud and tell everybody because to your point, you don't know who knows who.
Mhm.
You don't know who's in whose circle. So I think that's awesome. And speaking about like getting to know people and sharing who you are so people can get to know you, one of the things I saw on your website is that you have a Substack and you kind of write
Yeah.
about like a potpourri of things. And so why Substack? First of all, like, did you just jump on the bandwagon? We're like, yeah, everyone's doing it. I'm gonna do it too. Um, and tell us a little bit about what people could find there if they're interested.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I did jump on the bandwagon too, but also at the same time, I did realize that, um, Instagram can't be the final landing spot for my work or who I am. Because a big portion of like, I guess like my expression is on Instagram, but I also needed to find another outlet to kind of like um, share different thoughts or um, maybe even grow a different audience because I think, well, I'm getting older, so I feel like my quote unquote audience, and I don't like using these buzzwords, but whatever, we're gonna have to use it. Like my audience is also growing with me, you know what I mean? So, but then there's like certain parts of your audience that just get you more. And that I needed to find a space or a platform to kind of like release certain thoughts and ideas. And whoever follows it or discovers my Substacks can learn a little bit more about me. And that's kind of like it's kind of more of just like, oh, you found another part of me. So yeah. But like I haven't been active on it like lately like that. But I do have a writing background. Like I said, I have an advertising degree, but then I also minored in writing. But I dropped the minor so I could graduate faster. But I had a minor in creative writing and writing, like I said, I'm not a math Asian, but I was a writing Asian. And I used to write a lot. I used to write a lot of poetry. Fun fact, I won a male Asian beauty pageant not beauty pageant, but like a male pageant, and my talent was
Writing.
poetry. So not
Nice.
right. Well, I did poetry. I did a poem and or like what's the word for
Spoken
what
word.
it's spoken word. I did a spoken word and I won. But like yeah, I've always been a writer. I've always had like I always wrote my thoughts down. I used to journal a lot. I mean, here and there I still journal. Um, and then I was like, how can I combine these two things of writing and like my mind and photography, my what I love. And there's things in my Substacks where I'll just be like very transparent about a roll of film I shot and talk about why I shot that, why did I did the composition there, or I've tried a new film stock and talk about my experience with that, and just talk about even like my process of photography, how I mood board and how I shoot certain things. It's in my way for me, like I see that YouTube is a platform where a lot of photographers are and can visually show their stuff. I think Substacks is a little bit more for me because I could talk more and write more about it rather 'cause I'm not really a front-facing camera person, so I rather just talk and write.
Yeah, I think it's a cool medium, right?
Mhm.
Like to your point about Instagram, in a lot of ways it's just short form content. And so this is kind of like those deeper thoughts, that longer content. You can go into deeper. And I do love these like breakdowns of your films. I'm sitting here scrolling through one right now where you're like, oh, this was
Thank
like
you.
my first roll of film, or this was the first frame, or me chilling with the cat. By the way, love your
Yeah,
cat photos.
yeah.
Always love your
Thank
cat
you.
photos. Such a cat nerd over here. So yeah, and I love the idea of you leaning into things that you like to do, right? You like to write. So this platform makes 100% sense, right? Makes total sense that you would
Mhm.
gravitate to this, be able to share imagery, be able to tell stories, be able to write those stories, where someone who doesn't like to write but would rather talk to the camera, like YouTube is a great place for them to like show that
Right.
B-roll or do those vlogs or whatever that is. And I'm with you. Not like I've tried the YouTube thing. I get it out there, but man, it takes a lot of energy to be in front of the camera.
It does. It does. And like I like I like shooting and filming, but I don't like editing at all. I don't like that. I like editing photos, but I don't like editing videos because like editing videos is a whole nother skill, you know? It's like you're technically creating music videos, you know what I mean? Or creating short movies or
Yeah.
short form docu-series, whatever. Um, and I found Substacks to be just a little bit more easy and a little bit more chill and casual. And also at the same time, you could kind of utilize it as a newsletter for people who really follow you, who truly want to know you. And it's just an opportunity for them to see your process and how you think and how you are as a person. This is the type of photographer I'll be working with. This is the type of person I want to be with, shooting me or doing something for me or somebody aligned with, you know what I mean? So all I could do is just be my authentic self in my writing on Substacks. And
I
hopefully
love it.
I need to thank you for reminding me because I need to write more on it.
Yeah, maybe it's like a once a month thing, or maybe it's a once
Hmm.
a, at least once a quarter thing. Um, like you could do, well, I mean, you've got all this new work that's come out since I think your latest one was March or April on here. So
Yeah.
man, you could sit down and write in your spare time. But
Yeah.
with that said, where can people follow you, find you, and get to know you a bit?
Yeah, they can find me. I'm mainly on Instagram at pj.agbay, Agbay. And then like I said, there's links on my bio to my website, paolojagbay.com. There's my Substacks in there if you could find it. And then I'm also on YouTube too, but I don't really post like that. I post a lot of, I was using YouTube more as like experimental like content, like reels. Like I would transfer my reels and post it there and
Oh, for
see how it
shorts.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, for shorts. So I used to post a lot of like Rico content there, because I shoot Rico. That's like my favorite camera, my favorite digital camera.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I love that. I love that brand. That's a great camera. And yeah, we're but Instagram is mainly where I'm at, and PaoloJAgbay.com. That's my website.
Well, we will have all of those links in the show notes. So for those that are just listening, you could always find it in the show notes and tap the link. We'll take you over to Instagram. We'll have his website there as well. And I'll even link to his Substack because it's really fun. It's a little treasure trove in there. Maybe you'll even find the Pokemon. You could do like hidden things in there. Make your own little badges. Yeah. Oh my God, there's so much more we could dig into, but we're going to put the fire out for now. And we'll have PJ come back and share more about what is happening in the second half of his year and how that idea of kind of breaking the glass ceiling and bringing the creative talent together in Philadelphia is shaping up, because I think that's something we could really pull, we could see how that like goes in real time and like have little mini check-ins and see like, how's it progressing and what conversations are you having? Or did you hit a roadblock, and can we like mind meld our audience, right? Can we bring all the campers together to say like, hey, who can help PJ out in this issue, in this particular roadblock? To maybe there's somebody we need to introduce you to, or maybe there's somebody in the community, in the larger podcast community that, can help move the car forward, if you will. So, but this has been really fun. I love all of our little side conversations. Like, I know we could go deeper on every single one of them. Like we didn't even get into like your print show or your photo walks or, I don't even know. Like I have a whole list sitting here in front of me. I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that. But that just means there's more for later. And we'll have people
definitely,
jonesing for the next episode with you. This was so fun. Thank you for coming and chatting with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Ever since we met, you've just shown me love, and like my career has trajected ever since I met you, honestly. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm always rooting for you. I'm always excited to see what you're up to and cheering for you. So just know, if you ever need me, you know how to get a hold of me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
As we wrap up, let's remember that growth often comes from the communities we build and the connections we nurture. Like PJ mentioned when he first started with his iPhone, to, building a wedding business that people just wanted him to take pictures. It didn't matter that he was only photographing on his iPhone, to today where he's building community and connection inside his studio. And as we think about those connections, we can also think about where we want to drive our businesses towards and our, personal goals that we might have into 2026 and maybe even a year and a half from now. Where do we want to be and what do we want to grow? And how can those communities and connections around us help propel us and support us to do so? So I encourage you to think about who in your community are you going to tell your goals to? Who in your community can you support? And who in your community can you ask for a connection? And then help each other stay accountable and moving forward and cheering one another on towards that goal. And if you want to tell me, I'd love to hear what you're after. And maybe I can help you too. One of my superpowers is connection as well. You can drop me a DM over at creativecamp.pro, as you already know, or hit me up in the comments in Spotify. And if one of your goals in 2026 is to be better about getting in front of the people you want to hire you and better about how to communicate what you can do and how you can solve those problems or bring their ideas to life, then I encourage you to look at the pitching template bundle that Rachel from Two Loves Studio and I have put together specially for a 4-day sale. You can check it out over at courses.twolovesstudio.com. I'll link in the show notes, of course. We have a special rate for you. It's 50% off at the current moment. These are the pitching templates we put together for our workshop we led in October called Pitching Essentials. And we had a pro track where we had about a dozen people over there where we supported them on how to put these together, how to take the template and make it truly theirs. And we even had one student who landed a job within 24 hours of sending this pitch deck. We had several other students who landed calls and several more who got return emails. They didn't get blanked out. They didn't get put on mute. They weren't quote unquote ghosted. They actually heard back. And there is an art to saying what you want and to showing and painting the vision of what you can do for a client. So I encourage you, if that's one of your goals for 2026, check out those templates. Again, the link is in the show notes below, and you can also head over to twolovesstudio.com to learn more. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and spend some time reflecting on where you've been, what you've done, and where you want to go. Because growth matters, and we all want to move into the next phase in 2026. For now, we're going to put the fire out, and I'll stoke it again next week. Thanks again for being here.